Hello, and welcome to another episode of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. I am Rico, and I would like to start off by reminding everyone that I am not a doctor, I am not a therapist, I'm not a medical professional in any way, just a regular person trying to navigate through life and trying to navigate what's going on here. There's still quite a bit to work through. For this episode, I want to get back to the topic of my separation from my marriage. I don't think we were really talking about divorce. I think we just wanted to get away from each other for a little while, let things cool down. And I had stayed with my brothers for a very short period of time, and it was quite honestly horrible. And then I stayed with my parents for a short period of time, and it was equally as horrible. Just, it amazes me how easily people related to me could treat me like that. I've seen all of them be super cordial and friendly with their friends and with other people, but they never could afford that for me. They never had any of that for me. I always had to endure abuse from all of them. And again, I will mention it didn't seem like it at the time because I thought it was normal. I thought people treated everyone like crap. Even though I didn't follow in their footsteps and treat people like the way they did. It seemed like my brothers had a very easy time doing it to me, though. And I didn't do it to them. I didn't do it to anybody. I tried not to. If I did, I didn't mean it. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to remember things. Sometimes I like to blame myself because that's just where the trauma takes me. Maybe you were difficult, and that's why they treated you that way. I don't think I was, but sometimes that's where my thoughts take me. And I try to stay away from stuff like that, thoughts like that. But after staying with family and having just a horrible time, I was lucky enough to find a small house. And it was through my boss at the time. I was working at the moving company. And he knew a guy that had a big stretch of property. And he had a big house and he had a small house on the property. Now, to me, it looks like it was maybe like at one time like a servant's quarters or something. It was this small, cozy, tiny house, but it was a nice house. And the big house was big, and this guy had a garage with like 30-some cars, and they weren't just regular cars. They were cars from like overseas. He had Mini Coopers, and I saw it in there once. He had motorcycles and just a huge collection of cars of what's the word, exotic, not something you could just find here. But anyway, it was out in Cedar Lake. It was technically Crown Point, but it was almost Cedar Lake, so it was quite a drive to get out there. But it was nice to get away from everyone, and no one ever came to visit me out there because it was far away, except for my boys who would come and see me on the weekends. She would bring them down and I would drive them back. Much of the time she would make me do both trips just because she could, and she wanted to make things difficult for me, or at least I thought she did. I'm not saying that she did want to make it difficult for me, but it felt like that a lot of the times where she would just demand that I pick them up and then demand that I take them home. And it cost a lot of money to drive back and forth like that. That's not a short, quick drive. But I got to stay there rent-free in exchange for taking care of his property. All I had to do was take care of my utilities. But I want to take a quick break, and I'll be back with some more of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Welcome back to This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Getting back to the topic of my separation of my marriage at the time, moving out of the house, staying with family, having a horrible time, and then finding this little house down in Crown Point. Now, I should mention this guy had pretty large stretch of property, and it was wooded. So he wanted me to take care of his property, cut his grass, take care of the leaves. He had a big tractor, and he had one of those giant, I don't know what you would call it, I guess a leaf collector that hooked up to the back. It was like a vacuum, and it picked up all the leaves, and all I had to do was drive around. It would suck them up, and I would just take them off to way back in the property, and sometimes I would burn them, sometimes I would just leave them there, depending on my mood. But that's all I had to do. When it snowed in the winter, I had to clean the driveway. Not bad, except for the one time that it snowed a lot, and I couldn't keep up with it. But anyway, I just had to I had to supply my own utilities, and that was it. He didn't charge me rent. He just, asked me to work on his property and stuff. And he was a very nice guy. He had a live-in companion. This guy was a mechanic and took care of those cars. And, that's how they described it. They described it as, oh, he's just my mechanic. And if they had a relationship, that's fine. I don't have any judgment for that. People can do what they do, and I will never judge anyone for that. But staying in this little tiny house, my boys would come on the weekends, and it was always fun. And at the time, I was still playing with this band out of Hammond. I mentioned in the last video how I would get away, go to band practice. Sometimes I would just go to their house just to get away. I would go hang out there, and they let me in. I remember feeling such a sense of camaraderie with these guys because they just accepted me for who I was. They didn't expect anything else from me. They didn't treat me like I was dumb. They didn't treat me like I was like an idiot. They saw me as an equal, and we all got along famously. We played a lot of shows. We had a lot of fun. It was quite honestly one of the best times of my life, was playing with that band. But we had a tribute band, and we had a separate original band. And we had a lot of fun with these two bands. But they decided they wanted to try a third band. And this band was going to be just playing covers of songs that are featured in movies. And it was going to be like a movie themed kind of thing where we're just, playing songs from movie soundtracks. And that meant that we needed more instruments than what we had. So one of the guys had some friends and invited them over, and it was two women. One played guitar and sang. The other one played violin and could sing. So we were feeling, like we had quite the arsenal. We had a lot of talented people that we could make a lot of good music together. But after a while, I had become close with one of these women, and we started seeing each other. It was an unofficial thing. I found out she was playing somewhere, so I went out to the bar where she was playing, and we met up. And after that, we just kind of decided we wanted to hang out with each other more and more. So she lived in Illinois with her parents, but she unofficially moved in with me. She grabbed a bunch of her stuff and would just stay for me for weeks at a time. And we had a lot of fun. It was awesome. But I'm going to take another break, and I'll be back with some more of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Welcome back to This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. I'm getting back to the topic of living in this small house down in Crown Point and becoming close with one of my bandmates. She, like I said before, unofficially moved in. She just grabbed a bunch of her clothes and a bunch of her things and came and stayed with me. And I will say it was a whirlwind romance. We completely were into each other. Um, we could hardly stand being away from each other. But I think it just went too fast, way too fast. And before long, it deteriorated. It ended just as fast as it started. And I was sad about that. I really was, because we had a really good relationship, but the reality of it all set in and it just wasn't good for either one of us. But I think my main takeaway from that was that there were actually other people out there that were interested in me. I totally convinced myself that my ex-wife was the only one that was going to tolerate me and there was no one else that would even want to be with me. And then I just had this relationship with a woman that wanted to be with me. I thought that nobody wanted me at the time. I felt like I was unattractive to the opposite sex. I felt like not a single person out there would be interested in me at all. But it did make me feel a little bit better about myself knowing that I was wrong about that. So I stayed on my own. I think I was only in that house for like 6 months. And there was a few months. So maybe we were separated for close to a year. But we started talking again. I should say my ex-wife and I started talking again. And we started to work some things out. We started to have a little understanding. We started to have some dialogue where it wasn't just somebody talking, it was talking and listening. So before long, we decided to reconcile, packed up all my stuff, moved back to my house in Hobart. And we tried couples therapy again through the church. And it was the same result as the first time. It was a waste of time. It was a waste of everything. They just gave us these scriptures and the Bible says, blah, 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 blah. And that doesn't work for me. And it didn't work for me. And it still didn't work for me. But we tried. We persevered. We decided to stick with it. We stopped going to the counseling. We decided to work on things. We decided to try to understand each other a little bit better. And things got much, much better for a while, for quite a while. But they didn't stay that way. But at least they were good for a little bit. You know, I was relieved to get away from my family. I was relieved to not need anything from them. I think after learning about all of that, I just decided I didn't want much contact with them. I didn't want to go visit with my brothers anymore. I didn't want to go visit with my parents anymore. And things got better. And at the time, the band that I was playing in had decided to disband because they wanted to work on other projects. And it was a mutual thing. We all decided, yeah, okay, let's let this go. You guys work on whatever you're doing, and I'm gonna get back to my marriage and fix it. And you know, so during that time, I had collected a bunch of hand drums and like djembes and congas and stuff like that. And in this next segment, I'm going to talk about this next band that I decided to play with. But I'll be back. I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be back with some more. This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Welcome back to This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. I'm just touching down on the subject of separation of my marriage, and after a short while, the reconciliation of it. I had moved out, moved back, and things were good for a little bit. Now, during this time, I still had the music bug in me. I still had the urge to get out and play. So I met up with some friends, and I say that because I think we all considered each other friends, but they showed their true colors, and they were not really friends. Not really. They took advantage just like other people did. But I'd mentioned before that I had collected some djembes, some congas, a bunch of hand drums. And with this band, we decided, or I should say, they decided they wanted it to be an acoustic band. So we would do stuff with just djembes, just hand drums, but we were doing acoustic versions of like hard rock songs. We were doing Soundgarden, and we were doing Heart, just stuff like that. We had a female singer, so she could really belt them out. And it was fun. It was fun for a little while. I ended up making a hybrid drum set with a bass drum and my djembes and a little splash cymbal that I could just use with my hand. Hi-hat, so I could just keep, maybe a tambourine on top of that and do stuff like that. And it was fun. We played a few shows here and there, not a lot. We played more open mic nights than anything else. But during this time, my ex-wife started to become irritated with it. I don't know what her thinking was or her mentality on the whole thing. My interpretation, my perception is that she thought I was going to go out and cheat. She thought I was going to go out and meet people and meet women. And she just didn't trust me is what it all comes down to. I never did. I never did cheat. I never did meet anyone. If we met people, it was like the whole band would talk to people. It wasn't like I was off talking to somebody by myself. But she just became more and more irritated. She made me feel guilty for not being at home when I wanted to go out and play. She made me feel guilty for going in practice. She acted like all of my free time should be with them, even though she had plenty of time with her family and her sisters and her friends. Plenty of time. But when I would go do something, she would just be against it. Made me feel guilty. Made me feel guilty about doing something I loved. That's excruciating. Something I have, something that is a passion of mine, something that stirs my soul, and I was made to feel guilty for it. And then the reason I say they were friends, because after a while, they started having crappy attitudes. They started up with their superiority complex. They acted like we're better because we're talented. We're better than other people. We're better. And I didn't agree with that. They were just talked crappy about other bands. They talked crappy about other people. Made me think, what are they saying about me when I'm not around? We hosted an open mic, and it was music and spoken word. So people were doing poetry. And one of the guys in the band, whenever somebody was up reciting their poetry, would walk around the crowd, shushing people, shushing everyone. And then he would get up on the mic, and I just want to reiterate that you have to be quiet. You have to be quiet when someone's performing. You have to be quiet. And it was embarrassing. I was embarrassed to be there. And after that was done, I told him, the next time you guys do one of these, I'm not gonna be a part of it because I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to do that. And I got this hearty whatever, just dismissing everything I just said and just brushing it under the rug. And that was frustrating. It was frustrating, and it became increasingly more and more frustrating over time. There was a gig where we got paid, and they decided that they were going to tip the bartenders first and then split the money up. And that irritated me because no one ever asked me if I wanted to tip the bartender. Nobody ever talked to me about it. They just assumed that we were going to share that and we were going to give them, like bartenders need our tips. Like they don't make enough money. And there was a bunch of people there. So I know that they were doing okay. They didn't need my money, but they took my money and gave it to the bartenders and then acted like, oh no, this is what you're supposed to do. And I played in plenty of bands, and I have never done that or even heard of it. Quite honestly, and this is just my own feelings and perceptions, I think they just took it and kept it. That's what I think. But I don't know. I don't have proof. But I think it was their way of just trying to be on top. Their way of keeping things, in under their control. And it just got worse and worse. It was like anything else where people just get involved and then their stupid little attitudes and egos get in the way. Nobody wants to understand anything. They just want their own way. And that was it. So I was back to being a nobody. I'm in a band where I felt like a nobody. I moved back home, and after a while, I would feel like a nobody there again. And those are some haunting times, like I said before, when you're in a group and you feel alone. You're in a group of people and you feel like you don't even exist, like you're just kind of a tag along and everyone's servant. There was a lot of crappy attitudes because I was just a drummer, and they acted like I wasn't like a real member of the band, especially with the singer. We would be practicing and she would say something like, something's not right rhythmically, but she wouldn't say it to me. She would say it to the guitar player, and then the guitar player would, oh, hey, well, talk to me about what I'm doing. I don't need you talking to me about what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. Here I am, non-drummers telling me how to drum. And that was frustrating. And that was the beginning of the end. I couldn't take it with them anymore because they just had their stupid garbage attitudes. But I was in my old way of trying to keep the peace, like always. I tried not to, ruffle feathers. I tried not to, make things difficult. And it just all blew up in my face like it always did. I'm feeling alienated again. And for a short period of time, I felt much better about things. But that didn't last long at all. And I was back to the same place I was before. Again, constant theme of my life where I have hope, and that hope is soon dashed, taken away, just because. But I want to conclude this video. I want to thank you all for supporting me and for sticking with me for this long and for watching my videos. I want to thank you guys that comment. It means a lot to me that someone's paying attention. And I thank you. I love you all. Please like, share, subscribe. And we'll get through this. We'll get through this all. So with that, I am Rico, and thank you for watching another episode of This is Rico, trying to heal my inner child. And I will be back very soon with another video. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.